When you're in debt, be it a small credit card debt or a scary mortgage or student loan, it might be easy to pretend that everything is fine or bury your hand in the sand. Only at some point you're 30, 40, 50 and you still wonder why this debt is getting bigger and bigger and you still have no money saved for retirement or need to live paycheck to paycheck. The truth is, debt is like a snowball and we just keep rolling and getting bigger and bigger as long as you run away from it instead of facing it. Americans are buried in debt. Mortgages, student loans, bills, credit card debts, you name it. In 2020, Experian reported that the average American owes approximately $92,727 in total debt, the highest amount on record in the US. Chronic debt is one of the main reasons why poor stay poor. Not misfortune, not lack of possibilities, debt. I know, getting rid of your debt can feel impossible if you're barely breaking even financially. When I ask somebody why aren't they doing more to get out of debt, the answer is usually the same, and it's that they cannot do anything more because they don't have any money left after expenses. But guess what? Debt is what's keeping you out of money, and if you don't try to do today something that you haven't tried so far, then tomorrow you're going to be in the exact same unpleasant situation as today, if not worse. So if you're wondering how to get out of debt for good, then you've come to the right place. In this video I'm going to give you a step-by-step process that is guaranteed to get you out of debt. And the more of these steps you'll follow, the faster you'll get rid of it. So my friends, this is how we're getting out of debt. Number 1, getting to the root of the problem. Number 2, cutting your expenses. Number 3, increasing your income. And number 4, attacking your debt. Act on all these 4 pillars after watching the video and I'll assure you that you'll manage to be debt-free sooner than you expect. So let's start. Before we get into get out of debt strategies, it's important to understand why we get into debt in the first place. And this is because no matter how we fix our current debts, if we don't fix the financial habits that took us to get into debt in the first place, we're gonna fall into the same trap again. Now, except for some big debts like a mortgage or a student loan, most debts are driven by the fact that you want things you don't need, you don't realize that partial payments are not making it more affordable, and you can't see the chain of negative consequences in the long term. The truth is, we live in a consumer society where we judge other people by what they have and we get judged by what we have. None of us buys a $1,200 iPhone because we need it, but because we want to be part of the wealth that this iPhone represents. Easy, everybody knows that. And the answer from everybody is usually, okay, I know I don't need it, but if I find a way to get it, what's wrong about that? And therefore, we get to point 2. You don't realize that partial payments are not making it more affordable. This is the first point where everybody stumbles, and I mean really everybody. If you earn $2,000 per month and after expenses you're left with $200 and you want to buy yourself an iPhone that costs $1,000, then you just can't afford it. If they give you the option to pay $30 per month, you're not paying it less. It's just a psychological marketing trick that in my opinion is close to a scam. The only reason why we fall into the trap of thinking that something is more affordable with debt or with monthly payments is because we lack perception of the long term. So always remember this. Debt borrows from your future income. Anytime you take out a loan or charge something on your credit card or buy something on installments, you're borrowing the total sum from the yourself of the future. So don't make the mistake of looking at the short-term feasibility, look at the long-term consequences. Do you really want to spend your money for months and months paying for something that you've already used up and you don't get much value from anymore? I don't think so. The formula is pretty easy, so remind yourself this formula every time you want to buy something. If you can't afford to pay for something with a single payment, then you can't afford it at all. So now we get to the reason number 3, which is you can't see the chain of negative consequences that will derive from this purchase in the long term. Unhappiness and depression for being always out of money, fear and shock of the unpredictable, anxiety and depression, you name it. But believe me, as soon as you get debt-free and your bank account will show a number that can sustain you for months without working, then you'll get into a totally different emotional state. If you have debts, truth is, there is something you need to fix with your expense habits. And this is the first element that you need to address if you want to start digging your way out of debt, one step at a time. In most cases, and this probably applies to you too, you don't have a good overview of your expenses. So let's see how to fix that. First of all, you need to reevaluate your needs and your wants with the goal of cutting unnecessary expenses. This is, by the way, it's something that everybody should do, with or without debts, because it gives you a clear idea of where your money really goes every month. Now, to start this, take a paper and a pen, or a phone, or a computer, whatever you like. Create 3 columns and call them debts, needs, and wants. And on top, write your monthly net income. Let's say $3,000 just for the sake of this video. Now, start listing the column debt. If you pay a mortgage, write down how much you pay for it every month. Let's say $1,200. Then maybe your car loan, $400, your credit card debt, $150, and student loan, $250. Now, in the column need, you're gonna list all the things that are necessary and can't be avoided. An example would be your monthly rent if you don't pay for a mortgage, but in this example, we go for the mortgage. Then you have utility bills like water, electricity, gas, or internet. Let's say 70 for water, 110 for electricity, 60 for natural gas, and 70 for internet. Then we have basic groceries, namely the food that you buy for home and not the money that you spend to go out for dinner. Let's assume $300 here. Then transportation, like your tickets for public transportation or car expenses like gasoline. Let's assume here $100. Then we have insurances, pet insurance, dental insurance, legal protection insurance. Let's assume $20. Now, I'm just listing things now, so of course you're the only one that knows what are your real expenses and needs, so just create the list as you need. After we're done with the needs, let's move on to the wants. The wants are everything you can live without, but you still buy because you want to. Now, quick note here, usually you tend to write less wants here than what you actually have. And this is because some expenses like a phone or a computer are a one-time expense, but we'll see how to consider them. Think how often you change your phone in the past few years and how much you pay on average. Divide that sum by the number of months that you usually keep a phone and you'll obtain the monthly spend for that purchase. So write that down. Let's say you come out with $100 per month. Now let's move on to the shopping. How much do you spend on average per month on shopping? Let's say $100. Dining out in bars, $200. Cable for TV, makeup, video games, whatever comes to your mind, try to estimate an average monthly expense for it. Now that you've written everything, try to calculate the sum of each column and the total sum. You'll be surprised to see how much you spend every month and how much of it is actually spent on needs. In this example, I come out with $2,025 of debts, $730 of needs, and $545 of wants every month, which gives a total of $3,300. As you can see, in my example, the expense is higher than the income, meaning the debt grows over time. And this is, of course, the worst situation. Instead, if your income is higher than your expenses, you should already think about using what's left to pay off debt. Now, I want you to notice something in my example. If you sum the debts and the wants, you get something like $2,600, which is just incredible. Even if you take out a mortgage of $1,200, which we can say is necessary, you're left with $1,400 of debts and wants that you pay every month for avoidable things. That in the long term means more than $500,000 spent in 30 years. More than $500,000. Now, this of categorizing your expenses is something that you shouldn't underestimate. It's a powerful exercise that is essential to get back in control of your finances, and it's a first step to our financial freedom. So after evaluating and categorizing your expenses so that now you have an overview of what your expenses are every month, what is the next step? The next step is to reduce your needs and wants so that you can save some money and you can use it to pay off debts. Notice that you can and should act both on your needs and your wants, but you should put more focus on your wants because they have the highest potential for reduction. You can act today on your wants column by decreasing it so that the debt column will decrease over time. And in the end, with no debt, you'll have much more freedom for your needs, your wants, and for investments. Remember, getting out of debt is the first step to our financial freedom, and everybody can achieve that. So how do you cut expenses? You do that by working on your needs and your wants. Let's start with the wants. Here are 2 ways and you should adopt both of them. Number 1, from now on, never pay on installments. Never, nothing more. Never buy consumer products like phones, TVs, computers or electronic gadgets if you don't have the money on hand. And ignore also the installment with 0 interest rate. Even if in the end you're gonna pay the same because there are no interest, remember what I told you before. If you can't afford to pay something with a single payment, you can't afford it at all. And number 2 is cut expenses. You don't need to buy new clothes every month, you don't need to buy a new phone every year, and above all, you don't need to spend $1,000 on a phone. And also, stop going out to restaurants and learn the beauty of cooking at home. Going out to a restaurant or ordering food is so much easier than cooking at home, I know. But while you're enjoying the freedom of not having to cook, you're spending 10 times as much as what you spend if those meals were prepared by you. So remember that. Same goes for drinks. You can invite your friends home instead of having to spend $5 for a coffee or $10 for a cocktail somewhere. And if you have memberships that you're not using, quit them. Same goes for cable TV. You can find all your favorite shows online now, so you don't need to pay every month for cable. As long as you have debts in your debt column other than a mortgage of your house, you should adopt a strong sacrifice mindset and you should cut your wants as much as possible, even make them disappear. I know it's going to be hard to give up all these things, but the pain that the debts are going to give you in the long term are way worse than the joy that your material wishes are giving you today. Cutting up your expenses is a matter of discipline and long-term sight, but you can help yourself, and you do that by cutting up your credit cards. Shred them, burn them, do whatever you like, but stop using credit cards to buy more than what you can afford. Now, after your wants, let's concentrate on your needs. Utility bills can be reduced by up to 50% just by being more careful with your home habits. For example, don't keep your TV on if you're not watching it. And same goes for lights, water, and all other electronic appliances. I'm not going into details on consumption habits at home now, but many statistics indicate that the average consumption for utilities in the United States is 3 to 4 times higher than in developed countries in Europe like Germany or France. So there is a lot of room for improvement. Now, other than for utilities, there are many other ways to reduce your needs. For example, you can save tons of money just by showing coupons to the cashier when you buy groceries. And in general, try to be more aware of what you buy in groceries and try to buy discounted products whenever you find them. Then if you have kids, and let's say clothes for kids are a need and not a want, try consignment shopping. Kids grow out of clothes so fast, and it's not worth it to get into debt for your 2-year-old's ever-changing wardrobe. Check out your local consignment stores that sell outfits in good condition. And if you'd rather shop online, check out sites like ThreadUp or Swap.com. Then let me mention the last and most substantial expense, which is the car. The car is, in my opinion, one of the biggest money leeches. If it's possible in your city and because of your work, use public transportation because it's gonna save you thousands of dollars every year. Now look at that. In my example, $545 of wants are gone, as well as $400 of car loan. And all this money is saved and can be used every month to repay your debt. As you can see, reducing your expenses can already do a great deal of good to your finances. But what if it's not enough? Or what if you want to get debt-free much faster than that? Besides reducing expenses, you should try to increase your income. Here are a couple of solutions for this. Number 1 is sell out what you don't need. Maybe you don't have much, but most people I know who live paycheck to paycheck still spend hundreds of dollars every month in phones, clothes, and other stuff. You don't have to go minimalistic, but most probably there are things that lie around in your house that you don't need. You can sell them on Facebook Marketplace, on Craigslist, or on eBay. And by the way, the fact that you reduce the number of consumer products you have is not only good because you can sell them and make money out of it, but above all because having less things around relieves you of the addiction of buying and makes you understand that you can actually live a pretty good life without being surrounded by things. Number 2 is starting a side hustle. You can start your own business, and by the way, if you haven't, subscribe to my channel because I'll soon publish a really nice video about side hustles you can start. Maybe you're good at making things, sell your products online. Do you love animals? Maybe start dog walking or pet sitting. Become a driver for Lyft or Uber. Start a new career in online marketing. Learn how to develop a website or start a blog, or make deliveries to bring in extra money. I know that time and energy are limited, and that's why you should focus more on reducing expenses. But still, there are millions of ways to make money offline and online, and not only they're gonna bring you more money, but they're also gonna leave you with less time to spend it. Number 3 is work for a raise and ask for it. I know it may sound obvious, but most people don't even try. Go to your boss and ask for a raise. What do you have to lose? And if you think that you didn't do much to deserve a raise, then think about working more and showing your value. And number 4 is change job. If you can receive more money from your actual job, then you need to change it. I know sometimes it's hard to find a job, but at least consider looking for one. In most cases, if you manage to find one, you're usually gonna get 5 or 10% more salary, and this is gonna help you immensely on paying off debt. So, after reducing your expenses and increasing your income, you should be able to have a substantial sum every month that you can use to pay off your debts. There are two major ways to tackle debt: the avalanche method and the snowball method. The avalanche approach focuses on interest rates, namely you pay off your debts with the highest interest rates first. You throw all the money that you can on those debts and you only pay the minimum on all the other debts. When the debt is gone, you move on to the next debt with a lower interest rate, and so on until you have finished. The snowball approach instead works by tackling the lowest amount of debt first, paying it off, and then moving to the next debt until you get to the last debt with the highest amount, regardless of the interest rate. Interestingly, most people with debt tend to prefer the snowball approach, in which you start by paying off the smallest debt. This is an interesting result that came out of many researches and indicates that people are debt account adverse. That means that if you have multiple debts, you tend to focus on reducing the total number of debts rather than the total of associated costs. Nevertheless, the most financially clever method is the avalanche method, because if you tackle the debt with the highest interest ratio first, regardless of how big the debts are, in the long term you will have wasted less money on interest. Okay, so far we've seen how important it is to understand why we get into debt in the first place. We learned how to control our finances and how to reduce all elements of expenses, and we learned what are the two most common methods to pay off debt. Now, if you read about debts online, you're gonna find all kinds of tips on how to get out of debt, and some of these solutions are useful in theory but dangerous in practice. So I'd like to use the last part of this video to address two strategies that you can use, but if you don't use them properly, they're going to cause you more damage than help, and I'll explain why. The first one is the so-called debt consolidation. In a few words, if your credit rating allows it, you can get a bigger, lower interest loan and consolidate all your consumer debts into this loan. Now, this is in theory a great thing because you're gonna pay less interest, and in fact, I mentioned it as a suggestion in one of my last shorts. But you also need to consider that in most cases, it's going to keep you in debt longer. And having less to pay every month, you carry the risk if you're not disciplined enough to contract new debts. And the second is the so-called credit card balance transfer. Once you transfer your balance to a new credit card, you suddenly have more credit to spend. This again might be a great thing, but you have to be disciplined enough not to make any purchases on your old credit card. Moreover, consider that you're going to have balance transfer fees, and the transfer might also negatively affect your credit score. If you ask me, I believe that 90% of the solution lies not in these small tricks with the loans, but in changing your financial habits, lifestyle, and mindset. And that's why I focus most of the video on how to get back in control of your expenses. Being able to pay off debts is a direct consequence of healthy financial habits, and you can try whatever trick you want to reduce interest rates. But as long as you don't change the way you approach spending, you're always going to find yourself in debt. Being deep in debt is stressful for your health. You're going to worry over how to pay for bills, struggle to save for the future, and the stress over financing itself can make it more difficult to save money. On the other side, learn to control your finances and avoid unnecessary expenses, and you'll see that you'll be able to dig out of debt much faster than you think, and you'll see great benefits not only for your wallet, but also for your health. Well, I hope you enjoyed the content of this video and that it was helpful to you in some way. And if it was, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the like button and ring the bell so that you will be notified for future videos like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!